Welcome to Behind the Scenes at the Hanover Theatre. Now, here's your host, Lisa Condit.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks again for listening. We love having you tune in to Behind the Scenes here. And today, I am so excited to be with Mark Steina. Welcome to the program, Mark.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I'm really excited to be here. I have a lot to talk about.
I know. And so Mark is our special events coordinator. You might also recognize him if you come to the theater a lot. He is one of our house managers. He's been with us since before we opened, and he was featured for some time on our membership brochure. So, Mark, we're going to talk a lot today about the special events component of what you do. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about what you were doing before you came to the Hanover Theatre?
Oh, before I came to the Hanover Theatre.
Way back then, yes.
Way back then. Several jobs, probably, but the most recent and the one that I'm kind of still involved with is I'm a scout for an international modeling and talent agency. So I still have my fingers in that. And so the theater was a perfect fit for me because the talent that we have coming through the door, and hopefully someday some of the talent I found will be performing on our stage.
I believe, Mark, I believe. You know what's so fun about that whole industry is that you really do get to see the freshest talent. And I think it gives you a perspective when you're talking to people about the events that they're having here. Because you've done a lot of different types of events. Do you want to tell us about some of those?
Sure. We range anywhere from small parties of 20 people. Recently we had a retirement party and they wanted a small, intimate little gathering, and we used our beautiful Franklin Square Salon for that. And one of our biggest events that we've had recently, a couple of weeks ago, was the TD Bank Wow Awards. And when we say TD Bank Wow Awards, it really wowed us because they literally arrived 2 days before and transformed our entire theater into Jay Leno's stage.
It's so cool.
So the possibilities at the theater are endless. We're doing several weddings, and every one of the weddings that we've done has been completely different and very unexpected. And literally, people leave the theater going, who would have thought?
Well, and let's talk about weddings just for a minute, because a lot of times I'll actually get calls to see if we're interested in advertising for weddings to become a wedding venue. And truthfully, we really don't advertise a lot of the special events and venue rentals because primarily we are a performing arts center. We do have to give first priority to obviously the Broadway tours and some of the bigger names and legends, like, you know, we do have John Legend coming in June, and June is one of those months that brides prefer to be able to book in advance. And so if somebody comes to you and they're interested in booking a wedding, what do you usually tell them?
Well, you're exactly right, Lisa. That is the hardest part. And I could tell you very honestly that probably 3 times a week I'm having to tell people I'm sorry.
Right.
And you know, because you've booked a wedding before, so have I, brides now are almost booking. They want to get a venue 2 years out.
Right.
Because the really good ones go really fast.
Right.
And that's really hard for us. And I have to meet with our executive director, Troy Siebels, and make some pretty tough decisions. And unfortunately, a lot of them are disappointing because, like you said, we are first and foremost a performing arts center.
Right.
But once the word gets out about a spectacular wedding at the theater and what the possibilities are when they work with our sound and lighting people are really disappointed.
Oh, I know. And, you know, it's funny because at the staff meetings, a lot of times you'll talk about the events that are coming up and the weddings in particular. Some of them have extravagant themes. Like, what are some of the ways?
I'll tell you the two they were all spectacular because they're all very different. And I have to say probably the first wedding we did, where the couple chose to have a very informal wedding on the stage, and it was high-top cocktail tables and cafe tables, but projected on the back screen of the theater was an aerial view of downtown Paris.
Wow.
So when you looked from the audience onto the stage, and even the guests that evening, and there were about 150, felt like they were literally downtown Paris enjoying a meal at a cafe. So the first one, I guess, is always the best, and that one kind of sets the bar. But I have to say, the last one we did, which was just about a month or so ago, snow outside, freezing cold.
Right, because back up, wasn't it a blizzard?
It was a blizzard. It was a blizzard.
Yes.
But the beautiful trees out in front
yes.
of the theater with 10,000 lights on them, and the bride chose a winter theme. So working with our lighting designer, Brenda Shepard, we created literally a winter wonderland on stage. So the stage was entirely white. The flowers were white. The linen was white.
Pretty.
But what Brenda did with her blue lights, and then throughout the whole evening, there were snowflakes twinkling on all of the walls of the theater, constantly moving. What was really exciting about that wedding was the bride and groom were very dramatic people.
Yes.
And all I had to do was mention that we had an organ and an organ lift that lived down in the basement.
Yep.
And the possibility of them riding the lift up.
Right.
And that's actually how they made their entrance. The rest of the bridal party made their entrance from the back of the theater, and all eyes were on the back of the theater, and everyone expected the bride and groom to come from the back of the theater, when lo and behold, they came up out of the ground.
How fun.
Standing with their champagne glasses in their hand and ready to do their first dance. So if they are really creative people, you can really create a one-of-a-kind experience, a show.
Right.
And a lot of our events now that we used to do on the promenade are turning into stage events because people realize they can really make this something unforgettable for their guests.
Right. We have all sorts of tricks up our sleeves. We are a theatrical production house, right? So the fact that we have a lighting designer who works on the Broadway tours and really knows how to give the most pop and impact, really at the lowest budget, I think is a great tool for anybody who is looking to book their event. So you don't need to get into specifics, but about how much or what should people do if they're interested in finding out more?
Yeah, if people, and now that we have pictures up on the website, I'm getting phone calls from people saying, hey, I saw pictures of your venue on your website. Love to come in and look. This is the date that I have in mind. So that's usually the first step. So I have to consult the booking calendar. And sometimes the date is vacant, but there are other really important things around it.
Right.
So next step for me is to check with our executive director. But anyway, most people, if they've never been to the theater, even if we're not sure of a date yet, want to come just to see. And I'll tell you, Lisa, the minute they walk through the door, we walk into a pretty modern lobby the minute people walk in the door.
Yep.
But the next 3 steps that they take puts them right in the historic lobby of our theater, and their mouth just drops.
Right. And people have their portraits taken, even if they're not getting married at the theater, because it is just that gorgeous. We've had magazine shoots, all sorts of different...
we have people coming that are doing their bridal shots there, or even if they haven't gotten married at the theater, they want to do their formals on our grand staircase.
Absolutely.
We've had girls come in for quinceaneras with their whole group.
How fun.
So, yeah, it's just a beautiful place. And you know what? I'll break the time in my schedule because the more people we can let into that theater that have never been there before, it's going to come back to us with them coming to a show somewhere down the road.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you take the time to do that because I 100% agree with you. So that's really the personal end of the venue rentals, right? We do so much more and at such a bigger level than the private showers or luncheons or even meetings or weddings. Think about some of the corporate events we've had here. I'm thinking in particular of that hair show. Wow.
Yeah, 3 years ago, that was pretty spectacular. Paul Mitchell Corporation, which is based out of Beverly Hills, but have a local distribution center here in Shrewsbury, heard about the Hanover Theatre. And so I was contacted by the people in Beverly Hills who had, I have to drop a little line here, who had previously, the prior year, done their hair show at the Venetian in Las Vegas.
Ha!
So they wanted something equally as spectacular, but on the East Coast. So they chose us. 23
so
hairdressers
Yeah.
on a Monday afternoon for a hair show that was the most spectacular thing we'd ever seen in our lives.
And just to be clear, those were 23 hairdressers cutting live in front of a sold-out theater. Because it was an industry show.
Exactly. And the owner of Paul Mitchell Corporation actually flew out for this event, and he's also hinted, in because of their experience at the theater, Lisa, they are actually sponsoring our upcoming performance of
I
Hair.
know,
in
isn't
May.
that fabulous?
Yeah.
It is great.
And he'll be flying out.
Oh,
and there'll be a
fun.
pre-show cocktail party with a bunch of people from the East Coast.
Oh.
And it will be equally as spectacular, I'm sure.
We'll have to get pictures of that cocktail reception because I am sure the styles and the hair will be fabulous. I mean, it was really great. So you know what? We're going to continue this conversation about one of our most special events coming up at the theater after a quick break. So stay tuned for more behind the scenes on WCRN AM 830.